Early.
That's right. Fantastic.
Oh,
well, there's some awesome highlights, guys. So good. And I am thinking about some of the stuff you were sharing about there, and about coming out of this season of COVID and into somewhat of a normal, or a newish normal for us. And it's been great to be having, so many new, people in church, guests again, and encourage people to bring, which is awesome. But it got me thinking about 2021, but then more so just than about 1 year, but about that next decade. And I've been thinking a lot about decades, because I had my 40th birthday this year, as hard as it is to say. And it was a lot easier to say that Rachel had her 40th birthday, let me tell you. So I'm thinking about, my own decade. And because I was born in a decade year, zero, like 1980, some of you guys might have a zero decade birthday, do you? I don't know. But that way, like when your decade rolls around, you're like, if it coincides with the decade of the year of the, you're born, then you're thinking about your new decade, you're thinking about the new decade of the world that you're in, and I'm thinking about the 2021 and onward decade of Beyond Church, what that's going to look like. And so we're announcing our theme on Sunday, which I'm really excited about. But what I wanted just to focus on was, I'm thinking about, and I don't know if it's because I'm 40, I know that's not old, but some things do have to be considered as we do age. And, whether you're going from 20 to 30 or 30 to 40 or 40 to 50 or whatever decade you're up to. And I just was thinking about, no matter what kind of vision we set for the future, for the next decade, really nothing changes when it comes to what needs to be the most important thing for any of the things that God's put on our life to be achieved. We, as individuals and as leaders, we need to be our own first priority when it comes to thinking about the future, because whatever we're leading is dependent upon our health. And I did want to just speak briefly on that this afternoon, because I want us to be here in 10 years' time. I think, as I said before about that board meeting, there's great people there. This lunch team, the people that are here regularly, you are great people, and I want to be serving with you in the next 10 years and beyond. And so I want to make sure that we're positioned really well and that we're in a good place to begin a new decade I believe will be just an exponential decade. I've got a real personal conviction about that within my own personal life, and also Rachel and I, we've been married 20 years, last year, but this will be our 21st year wedding anniversary this year. And so it's not quite neat enough for Rach, but I've been thinking about, that as well. As a family, what's the next decade going to look like for us? And so when I was thinking about that, I was reading through some old blogs, and I came across one that was an interview by Kerry Newhoff to a guy who's called Gordon MacDonald. You may have even heard this. This wasn't the whole interview, but this was at the very start. And this guy celebrated his 80th birthday this year. And so he's been around the block. He's been a faithful leader in the life of the American church, a church over there. He's been the leader of that for many years. And the first question that Kerry asked him was, what after a view from 80 years, what would you say are the leadership imperatives that have kept you and sustainable for the last, 40 years or longer, probably, 60 years of leadership? And so what I want to do, I just want to rapid fire these to you. There's a few of them. So you don't necessarily have to write them down, because I'll send a list to you. But I just thought some of them were really poignant for us and where we're at in our own church journey. So the first one is this. So the question was, what are your top leadership imperatives from a view at 80 years of age? The first thing he says is, put people you value most in your calendar first. And so pastors and leaders, he says, your family is the Lord's work. So live like it. So make sure your family is first when it comes to prioritizing your time. And, this is important for us, because for our executive team, those people on staff, we're talking about annual leave for next year. So the first thing that goes into your calendar, what's the big rock that's immovable? Annual leave with your family has got to be the first thing that goes in that calendar for you, because that's what you should be valuing the most. That's your first calling, is to your family. The second thing he says is, never stop learning and growing. If you want to do what you're called to do, you need to keep growing. We obviously make a big deal about that at Beyond Church. It's part of our vision to be growing churches, and that means that we personally need to be growing if we're going to be here in 10 years' time. You don't want to be the person that's outgrown by the organisation. You want to stay where you are, and to do that, you have to commit to growing, which means if you're not doing new things this year, if you're doing the same things you were doing last year, then we've got to have a look at that and see if we can move something around. The third thing is be more a priest and less of a preacher to people. I thought that was really helpful too. A preacher or preaching is a one-way conversation. I mean, I know we ask for feedback at Beyond Church, but really it's just, you're just being told something really as a preacher. But a priest has a dialogue. So be more like a priest to people in your life. And I would say that as we grow as a church, we don't want to become corporate. As our systems become more robust and as our system has to become stronger, we need to stay soft and we need to stay more like priests and preachers. Number 4, he says, the time will come, and this is really challenging, the time will come when you'll have to relinquish titles and privileges and slip into obscurity, ultimately the obscurity of death. Now, I know we're all a long way from that. So what kind of an old person do you want to be? It's a good question to answer. I know old people. I know great old people that are so kind and generous and patient and kind. But man, I know some old people that are really grumpy and impatient and mean. So, bro, you've got like a couple of years left. Why can't we enjoy them with you? So what kind of an old person do you want to be? Plan to be that person. Number 5, he says, prepare yourself for those occasions when you, like most people, will suffer and fail and fall into doubt and face conflict and experience loss. So prepare for those seasons is what he's saying. Because what he says disappointments and doubts will come into your life, and sometimes Satan wins a battle, but he'll never win the war, which we've been learning about through our last message series. But be prepared for times where you're going to fail, where you're going to lose, where you're going to be hurt, where you're going to be disappointed. You can't live life thinking that you're immune to the reality of the world. Number 6, be trustworthy and dependable, a person who keeps her word. I just changed that then.
Thank you.
Don't make promises you can't keep. Man, this is so powerful. It's such a simple truth, but it's so powerful. Don't make promises you can't keep. Your integrity relies on it. If you want to be someone who has integrity, then you have to do what you say you're going to do, which means if you're not doing that, you're probably saying more than you should, overcommitting, or you're just not doing the work to get it done. So that's got to change. Be a trustworthy and dependable person. Number 7, be a spiritual mother or father to teachable people who may someday inherit your responsibilities. I thought, wow, that's such a powerful thought. Be a spiritual mother or father or spiritual parent to someone who's teachable, because they will one day inherit your responsibilities. The next generation needs what we have to offer, so don't withhold it. Whether you're 40, 80, 30, who are you building into right now? Who are you speaking into? Who's going to take on your responsibilities? Who's the next you? If you're an island doing all that you're doing, you're wasting your own time. You're wasting the time of the kingdom. Everything about what we do is about raising people to move the kingdom forward once we are not here. Be a spiritual parent. Number 8, live modestly, stay free of debt, be generous, and you can do both. You can be free of debt and be generous. Develop a financial strategy for your future. And also he says here, which I think is really interesting, be wary of those who try to buy your favour. Be wary of those who try to buy your favour. I think sometimes, and I think I've grown a little bit in this space as well, but certainly when I was a lot younger, I would be very happy, for someone to, be financially generous for me. If I had, I was thinking, I could just make a compromise because, hey, it's going to help me. It's going to move me forward. But now it's like I'm not interested in that because I value principle and I value integrity and I value character so much more than money. So now it doesn't matter. Like I don't care about the money anymore. It's not about that. It's about purpose and it's about vision and it's about those things that matter. So to be okay with that, you do need to make sure that you're not beholden to money, that you're not having to say yes because it's going to answer a money question. You want to say yes because it answers a vision question. So live modestly. Number 9, expect to reorder your internal life. This is really cool. Expect to reorder your internal life once every 7 to 10 years. So that's what I'm talking about right now. He reckons that life goes through basic definitional changes in 10-year increments. And so the way that you think about life now will need to change as things change. So and again, you don't want to be, this guy's 80, so he's learned that you don't want to be the guy who's 80 who's stuck in the world 40 years ago. Like, I know, like, there's each season has its own beauty, and we all love Hosanna and shout to the Lord, and we all love a Morris Minor. I know it's back. We all love seeing like a vintage car drive past, but there's a reason why we aren't all driving them around anymore. It's expensive and dangerous, and it's the same with your life. Like, you don't want to get stuck 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Have you spent the time to redefine how you are living your life? I think that's so helpful. Number 10, receive compliments, criticism, and counsel with humility and appreciation. Avoid whining, complaining, self-pity. Assume that there is at least a grain of truth in the things critics say about you and your work. Now, I actually think that's really helpful. I struggle with this, obviously, if you know me, but I hear it said a lot that in any kind of criticism, let's just not completely blanket. Let's just think about it. Maybe there's something in this that we could be learning from. Have we communicated well enough? Have we thought through all the implications of this decision? Did I really own that? When I made that mistake. So is there some truth to any criticism? Let's just not throw it away straight away. Number 11. How many are there? I'm not telling you. Stay alert. I've still got 8 minutes. Stay alert for the evils and temptations embedded in institutional life. Now, like, I think that for us, this isn't such a concern. I think he's talking more here about the temptation of kind of getting the benefits of large, organizations where you can, benefit from the perks and, getting your own chauffeur and having a couple of PAs. And I mean, we're not there yet. But this guy was, leading private jet, leading a big church, doing big things. He says, stay alert for the evils of temptations embedded in institutional life. Every relationship has its flaws, and good leadership is assuming that there are flaws in this organization, and I must always be aware of when they might show themselves and what I, as the leader, would do to bring them under control. So you've got to be okay with, organizationally, not being trapped within the comfort of the organisation that's been built. You've got to be willing to dismantle things that serve you to serve the greater good. Now, that's a big thought, and if you're not leading at that level, that might not make much sense. But if there's things around your life that you've built that aren't actually continuing to serve the mission, you've got to take them down, even if it's uncomfortable for you and puts you out and even sits you aside. So number 12, be quick to say with sincerity. Oh, I love this one. Be quick to say with sincerity, thank you, well done, I'm sorry, I forgive you, and how can I help? This guy's written a whole book about those 5 things, but really he calls them the 5 inner core transactions in all relationships. The thank you, the well done, the I'm sorry, the I forgive you, and the how can I help. None of them can be missing if you want to live a life with healthy relationships. So always look for the thing you can find in another person that's worth praising. Number 13, always, now that I've gone past 10, you're like, oh wow, how many more are there? Number 13, always maintain a relationship with 1 or 2 mentors who can aid you in hearing God's voice. Who's speaking into your life? I've talked about that before, be speaking into others, and they may inherit your responsibilities one day, but who have you sought after to speak into your life, to speak, God's word into you? Sure, your pastor, may be doing that, and hopefully they are, but who else is there? Who's the one-on-one? Who's the coffee that you're catching up with, once a month, once a quarter, that's just saying, hey, I believe God's speaking this over your life right now. At Beyond Church, we're blessed with a mentoring program where that happens systematically, but it should be something that's culturally, your norm. Like, you're looking for people to speak into your life. This is what this guy says on this number 13. He says, over the course of a lifetime, aim to have over 100 mentors that have left their wisdom in you. That's a lot, right? That's a lot. Number 14, master the art of asking the penetrating questions that open someone's heart. And I think this is absolutely key. Actually, out of this entire list, I feel like this could be the key for the next season of growth for Beyond Church, right? That the art of asking the penetrating questions that open someone's heart. So listen to this. And what does that question look like? Okay, well, you're asking that question when you get responses like this. Oh boy, you really ask good questions. You've been in a conversation where someone said that to you, hopefully, but have you ever said it to someone else? Wow, you really ask good questions. Or wow, nobody's ever asked me that before. Or oh, I've never thought about that before. You know, when you get those kind of responses from the person you're talking with, they're saying that they want to open their heart to you. And you've asked the kind of question that digs past just the surface level conversation. And let's be those people. And for me, that's really about call of God as well, because you're drawing something out of them that's a fundamental core future. Like, what is it about your future that you maybe can or you can't, maybe you can or maybe you can't see for yourself. So let's be those people that ask those kind of questions that help people think about their future in a meaningful way. Because we want to raise a lot of great leaders, and sometimes people don't realize that that's on their life. So let's be the kind of leaders that call the call of God out of people. Number 15, this is the last one. Retreat to the cross regularly. Express your appreciations. Name your sins. Pray for the world. Listen to God's call to do the things that are bigger than you. And he says at that point eclipses all the other points. Let's go to Jesus, thank Jesus for who he is and what he's doing. Tell Jesus that you are sorry for the sin that's in your life. Pray for everyone else. Listen to the call of God on your life and hear him say when he calls you into something much bigger than what you're currently in right now. And I think if we can take that lesson from that Gordon MacDonald, an 80-year-old man this